Hello, everyone, and welcome to Paranormal Roundtable, PRT for short. A lot of people just call it PRT, and we call our listeners paratroopers. My name is Josh Turner. I'm your host. With me tonight is Anthony. You want to say hello, Anthony?
Good evening, everyone. How y'all doing?
He'll be here for a little while at least until he falls asleep, and then he'll...
Which won't be long.
Well, we know. We know. The audience is used to your slackery. So what we have tonight, we have a guest. Before we introduce him, let's get to the prelims here. We have a show that we do every Tuesday. It's a live stream, and today is March 1st. And we did the show earlier, and we had on that show Bettina Moss, who told her Dogman encounter. And I announced on the show that I was going to be recording with this individual. His name is Jay. Well, I call him Jay. Tucker's name is James, but he goes by Vault of Nightmares on YouTube. He's got a channel, pretty cool channel. And we're going to talk about some of his stuff tonight. And before we do that, I wanted to give you the email address, which is joshturner@prtpodcast.com, joshturner@prtpodcast.com. Send me your stories and reach out to me, and we can collaborate. We can get together. We can get you on the show, or I can tell your stories, which is what a lot of people do. Give me their stories, and I retell them. It's up to you how you want to do it, and if you're willing to talk and you're able to talk, you can come on and do it. I'm easy to talk to, easy to deal with. And hit me up on Messenger. Join our Facebook group on Messenger. I said it correctly, Anthony?
Yeah, finally.
Facebook group.
Yeah, it's a group, not a group page.
Okay.
A group and a page are two different things.
Yes, all right. Yes, child. Paranormal Roundtable group.
There you go.
Okay.
Padawan.
Okay, no, you're the Padawan. I'm the Sith Lord.
In the cyber world, you're the Padawan.
No.
Yes, very
always.
much so.
In all things, I am the Sith Lord.
Okay, well, the Sith Lord can figure out how to send his own email with attachments.
Wolf King. Call me that. Wolf King. Anyways, I choose the name. That's it. That's my name. And you are Duffeldorf. That's your name. That's I pronounced you von Duffeldorf. So anyways, no takebacks. We have a group, Paranormal Roundtable group, and then we have Paranormal Roundtable prayer group. We have Paranormal Encounters. We have Paranormal Lounge. Now, Encounters belongs to Mushu. That's my godson. And then we have Nellie's group, Paranormal Lounge. Each group has its own vibe. Okay, it's just its own, And then we have Paranormal Truckers podcast, which is John King, and I'm an admin there. And then Ryan Tremblay, which he has his own show, and his is Whisper to a Scream, his group. I'm an admin on there. And then we have Dogman Wealth Discussion, which is Della Carter and Phil Stern. And then Phil Stern and Chris Clough created a fan page for me. So there's Josh Wolf Turner. I think, is that what it is? What is it?
I think it's like Josh Wolf Turner official fan page. Or
PRT
like
fan page. They do all kinds of memes and stuff on there. I didn't create it; they created it, and so anyway, I don't know. I'm an admin Quad Coalition of Sciences with Nick Valente. I work with a lot of different people, and one of them is on tonight. He's a friend of mine, and so what we're gonna do, we're gonna talk about some things, and we're gonna get into a whole bunch of different things. Actually, he's got a lot going on. He's like me; he's got a lot of irons in the fire. And we've talked, and he's been on my live stream on Tuesdays, but he's never recorded with me for the Friday podcast. And this does go on like 12 different platforms. So the Tuesday live stream, if you don't show up for the Tuesday live stream, folks, it's on YouTube. It's a YouTube exclusive. We go 2 to 3 hours, and we start 7:30?
Between 7:30 and 8:30.
Yeah. And so if you go and you listen to the Tuesday live stream, if you don't listen to it, you're missing out because you're getting a lot of bonus content there, a lot. And we try to keep the commercials and everything to a minimum. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest. We got a lot to talk about. Vault, you there?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing? Thank you for letting me be here tonight.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Now, Jay, we're friends, and we talk pretty regularly, and
Yep.
We've been talking. This has been a long time coming for us to do this collaboration. I'm excited to all the things that you are into and that you've done, and I'm going to let you kick it off here. Talk about what's coming up tomorrow night on Saturday.
Saturday night will be my first since I took over. It used to be called Dogman Cams. It's called Nightmare Nation TV now. I have 6 cameras live in my backyard. And for the people that don't know, I when I bought this house, I bought it because there is Squatch. I believe it is Squatch. They look a little differently than what I'm used to dealing with, but they don't look like any Dogman I heard described, and they don't exactly look like a Bigfoot either. They got a little bit different face, and they're really big for this area, like really big. I'm going to be doing call blasting Saturday night. That's what I invited you for a special guest for the first show on Nightmare Nation TV, because we're going to be broadcasting this live. These are live cameras that you can go and join the Nightmare Nation TV and watch it 24 hours a day. It runs nonstop. You can record if you want to. I record all the time through my DVR. But that night, we're going to be broadcasting it live on my channel, The Vault of Nightmares. This will be the first show, and we're going to be doing call blasting the first night. We're going to be playing, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Surefire horn.
The show horn,
yes. Yeah, sure horn. I've got two different versions of that. We've got Silverback Gorilla. I've recorded a Squatch call that I believe that is a Squatch call. I've got some of the Sierra sounds and a couple of others that my listeners had sent me in, and we've got an hours long of those to blast. And it does it automatically. It'll sound off for so long, pause, and then sound off again like 5 to 10 minutes, and it keeps doing that.
Wow, that's going to be interesting. And have you done this before?
No, sir. This is the first time I've ever call blasted, because most of the time that I've been doing investigations for probably 30 years. And most of the time what I was doing was private investigations, where I'd went out, if someone called me for a problem they were having around their home or property or whatever, I would go help them best I could to either figure out it was a Squatch, wasn't a Squatch. And then I've been doing my own investigation, trying to figure out what the heck these things are and why they do some of the things they do. And every time that I think I've got something figured out, they do something differently, and that goes out the window. But I've never call blasted. I've had to go deal after people have call blasted certain sounds that either got the activity ramped up so much people were leaving their homes, or other bad things have happened. And I'll leave it to the listeners' imagination to what I mean by bad things. Very bad things have happened. That's the reason why I've never done it. And because of that, I've actually took extra steps and precautions to make safe areas around my house, down the road from my house. My nearest neighbor is almost 2 miles away, because I live in the woods.
Yeah, and where tell the audience where about. You don't have to tell them exactly, but where about do you live?
I'm in Mississippi. I'm in central Mississippi.
Central Mississippi. And that is a hotbed for Bigfoot and Dogman activity.
Yes, sir.
I can tell you that right now. I covered a case down there in that area. So,
well, because of what I've known that has happened, and like I said, I'm trying to do this safely as possible. I'm armed, which I'm armed 99% of the time. Yeah. I've got my two boys have grew up around me, and they've had training. They're both will be armed. One of them will probably be on camera. The other one probably won't, because he's going to be sitting back up in a hide with a high-powered rifle just to watch our six, just in case something stupid happens. And then I'm an auxiliary deputy here in the county that I'm in. I will have a deputy station about a mile down the road in one direction and a mile down the road in the other direction. My sheriff knows what's going on, and I've alerted dispatch for that night. That way, in case somebody does hear something or something happens and some crazy calls come in. Like I said, I've tried to cover every scenario possible to do this.
Yeah, and the one thing I do know is you are pretty thorough, Vault. And let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Are you, and I mean, honestly, are you a little bit nervous about this?
Yes, sir. Because I don't know what's going to happen. All I've got to go by is what I've seen happen in the past with people. And like I said, that's the reason why, like I said, I have, I'm not going to say on air what I have. I have a system set up around my house. If they get past us, they're not going to have a good day. We're going to definitely know what one of these things are, because they're going to be laying on the ground. And I carry for what, like my sidearms, a 40 caliber Glock. I carry right now, I'm carrying a AA-12. with a drum. I carry 2 drum mags.
Do you think that these things are so aggressive and they're violent that is something that's warranted?
They haven't been here. They've tried to push their boundaries here, but I don't know, because we don't know what these sounds actually mean that I'm going, especially the one of them I know for definitely is a Squatch sound, because me and my son recorded it, and it was just ungodly loud. And I got a little bit of flack when I played it for some people online. They're like, "Oh, it sounds like this, that, and the other." Well, I don't care what it sounds like. I know where it was recorded. I recorded it with my cell phone. And that's the other thing. If for these creatures to be real, you are going to expect to hear common sounds, no matter where you go. That's the other thing I couldn't get them to understand. But some of these sounds, we don't know what, like the Sierra sounds, we don't know what these mean or what kind of. I've heard people that said that they played the Sherhorn that said as soon as they played that, these things just all of a sudden went ballistic. So that, and we've had some paranormal activity on this property that I didn't realize was going on until we put these cameras up. We've caught what we call the blue will-o-wisp orbs. They've been caught like 6 times on these cameras back here, where this thing will come straight up out of the ground, and it's emitting a light source of its own because it's casting light and causing shadows. And then it'll move around intelligently, and then it just goes right back into the ground. This is live on camera. So when we start playing these sounds, how do I know some kind of demonic spirit or something else is not going to show up? I know firearms don't work a lot of against stuff like that most of the time, but like, I carry what they call juju bags and stuff on me because I've got Native American running through me. That's supposed to help protect me from stuff. But, when you invite stuff in, you kind of leave yourself open.
And so this Sherhorn, what do you know about it? What can you tell me about it?
That's the whole thing. I don't know a whole lot. What I've researched and learned is this is supposed to call forth the end times. So, like I said, I've got 2 different versions of it that's going to play. So, when I play this, how do I know that what's coming is, unless I see it? I've seen these Squatches out here multiple times. But if I can't see it, how am I supposed to know that that is a Squatch and not something demonic or something else that has come up because that was played? Because this is going out over a 100-watt speaker system that plays it'll play from negative 20 dB all the way up to I think it's 80 dB. So we're going through the range of vocalization, because I've heard that Squatches will really answer back to low dB noises, and then I've heard that sometimes they'll answer back to plus 50 dB, which is past the human hearing. Like I said, this is an experiment, and stuff like this is what I'm going to be doing after this Saturday night. Every 2 weeks, there's going to be a show. We're going to do something. The reason why I say 2 weeks is gives me a week to figure out what we're going to do and a week to plan ahead, because I'm a big thing about planning. I plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Well, it's kind of how you got to be. You got to be ready. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Yes, sir. That's the old motto of ours. And for the ones that don't know, I'm ex-PMC. I worked for Blackwater International before, through I think 3 or 4 different name changes. I worked for them for almost 21 years. I've been around the world in different countries, Bosnia, Syria, Afghanistan, several other places that I can't name. And then I've worked security for places like Area 51. I worked security for Skinwalker Ranch when Bigelow first bought it. That was an odd one. Like I said, you name it, and I probably have guarded it from my outhouse to diplomats and dignitaries.
So, and just to clarify, the show horn, saying show horn is actually a abbreviated way of saying shofar horn.
Yes, sir. I butcher that name every time I try to say it.
Well, I always call it the show horn because it's shofar horn. So I just always said that.
Like I said, what do you know about it? Because you may can teach me something. Like I said, what I've found out and learned is it's supposed to call forth the end of time.
There's a lot of different legends that go around that, and one of them, I mean, well, okay, we'll start from the beginning. It's actually a musical instrument, the Hebrew. It's based in Hebrew, the Hebrew legend of the shofar, and it's just what it is. It's just it doesn't have any it lacks like any kind of control. Like you just blow it and it doesn't, you can't really do music with it. I mean, it's kind of like from what I know. And
depending on how it's blowed is the sounds it makes. That's the reason why I went and found two different versions. There's one that's really deep and vibrating, and then there's one that's kind of like loud trumpety. But both of them are supposed to be from the same person. It's just the way he was blowing it.
Yeah, and as far as I know, I think it's made of like a goat horn or something. Mm-hmm. And I know that it was used. The rabbis would use it for like to announce the new moon. And I haven't really heard of anything. I know that they used it to start war. The first I ever heard of it being used I know that it was. I think it's used for Shabbat too, like for their different religious holidays and different. Yeah, it's used for their Sabbath type, and it's just it was that's what it was used for, and it's still used to this day, I believe. But I don't know of it being used to call forth evil or cryptids or anything like that. But I mean, there are varying opinions on that. I think that, in seeing what Elijah Henderson had sent me when I had talked to him or messaged him, he had told me that Kumbo, I don't know if you know who that is.
Oh, yes, I know who they are.
Kumbo, yeah, he had said that it was a specific way that to blow it to make it work. And I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that the show horn or shofar horn is basically that's what that does. And I don't know the whole ramifications of what could happen if you use it or if you use it correctly. I'm pretty sure that Barton Nunley and Elijah Henderson and his dad John Henderson had used it, and I don't know how much they got out of that. I don't even know if they had any returns on that or what. At some point, I would like to get in touch with them and just to ask those questions and know that I've messaged them about that horn and about what, But as far as I know, I don't know what they encountered. I know that they use it in the LBL, the Land Between the Lakes. Yeah,
I think that's where I looked up and found that it had been used, but I couldn't find out. There's contradicting stuff out there. This one group said it did work. This one group said it didn't work. I don't know. That's the reason why I'm going to do it myself. And like I said, it's going to be live on air. I have no idea if any. Like I said, I've even got some silverback gorilla sounds and calls.
And you think that'll bring them forth?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to try different things to see what they will respond to and what they won't respond to. It could be a total bust. Then again, the first sound I think that's on there is the gorilla, where it's a male gorilla challenging another male gorilla. It could blow up right then and everything go haywire. I have no idea, but it's going to be live on air. But I'm trying to do this as scientifically as I can, and trying this is and doing it live. That way people want to know what's going on. Well, you get to see it live. And it's kind of hard to spoof or mislead someone when something's live.
Yeah.
Especially when something we've had on a live show where I got to get the video so I can send it to you. Sean from Chasing the Truth He was running the show that night, so he recorded it. There's a tree out there probably about 9 or 10 inches around, and it's probably 20 foot tall. I started shooting off some fireworks during Christmas, and this thing started shaking that one tree to where it was like almost going over, touching the ground, to the point where they rocked it, and the roots died. The tree actually died over a couple of months later because it had ripped the roots loose from the ground. Then he also caught a figure coming out between two trees, and when we went back and put me in place of it, and I already done told him, I said, that thing is huge. And I went back out there on camera and showed them. And they're like, it can't be that big. I said, you see that limb? I purposely cut all these limbs off. It's almost 15 foot up in the air, and its head was just like a foot below that. So it was almost 14 foot tall, whatever this was. But you can clearly see it comes out, goes over the tree, covers up the tree. And then I guess when it realized that camera was there, it just pulls and goes right back in. You can watch its eye blink. It's probably 15 seconds long, but you can watch its eye blink and watch it move.
Yeah, now, I know that near Vancouver, Washington, just east of Vancouver, Washington, I had a guy tell me that he had played, he had Sasquatch activity going on. And he had tried different, like, monkeys fighting. He had tried doing everything. And nothing with, like, the show horn thing, but he had tried everything else. And he had tried, like, just getting gorilla, whatever. And so he thought it was a bust. And he did this. This was about 10 years ago. And then he said that the next day, though, that he had Bigfoot, like there looked like they had tore down, like he had this like trellis or something, and like it was, they had tore it down, and there was like all this destruction of his private fence was tore down.
That's happened here after a show.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it happened like the day after the first show we ever did, where I went down there and built a bonfire. This was Halloween night, our Halloween special. I went down there and built a bonfire. I was telling different stories that I've collected over the years that I've investigated and stuff like that. And the very next night, Dark Waters was doing a show, and he was playing the cameras. And I wasn't even on the show. I had called in, and because I didn't realize he was live. And he brought me on the show, and we were talking about it. I said, okay. I said, well, I'm fixing to go in here and cook because my son does. He does video games and he streams those. I said, well, I'm going to be on with him streaming this show. I said, I'm going to go in here, and I was fixing to cook some elk steaks that had just been sent to me. And we have one of those big Viking stoves that has the grill right in the middle of it. Well, I throwed it on, like I said, I hung up the phone, hadn't been off the phone 10 minutes. I'm in here and I cut throw the steaks on there, and my wife walks through and says, you got to cut that vent hood on. She said, the smoke is killing me. And so I reached up there and put the vent hood on. She's behind me now, washing some potatoes to get ready to fix make some potatoes to go with this. And probably 2 minutes after I turned that on, now DW is still live with the cameras playing live. All of a sudden, one starts screaming out by the house. He catches it live on air, and he's in the middle of me talking like I am now, and he just freaks out. He just loses it on air because this thing is screaming. It sounds. Have you ever heard the Sierra sounds where they do that? Wah! Wah! It's doing that, and then all of a sudden it breaks into almost a woman being murdered, turns into like an owl hoot, and then just shuts up. But it is loud. Like my wife throws the potatoes up in the air, and now my head's under the thing where what I hear kind of reminds me of a siren. I pulled my head out, and I said, was that a siren? And she just turns around and says, nope. Walks right over to her purse, pulls out. She carries a Taurus judge. She walks over, pulls it out, sticks it in her back pocket, and goes back to washing potatoes. My wife doesn't like it here because of all the stuff. It messes with her. But
I could see why. I mean,
well, most people don't realize those cameras, if you measured from the corner of the house, which is my bedroom, to the first camera, it's only about 50 feet, 60 feet. They've come when we first got here. They would come up because nobody had lived here for about 2 years. The man that had this place got put in the nursing home in another state because he couldn't stay here by himself anymore. And the house was in disarray. And I bought the house really cheap, and it came with 18 acres of land, like really cheap. And I had to go in and redo the whole inside of the house. And it took me and my boys about 2.5, 3 months to do that. And we moved in. Well, the very first night we were here, as soon as it got dark, all heck broke loose back here. I'm talking about screaming, hollering. They were throwing stuff at the house. And I was
like, who are they?
The Squatches. There's more than one.
The locals.
Yes, sir. The locals that, like I said, no one had lived here for over 2 years.
And how long have you been there now, though?
I've been here a little over a year.
Wow. And before that, where'd you stay?
I had another house in town, and someone offered me more money than I wanted for the house, so I sold it. And then I had an apartment complex on the other end of town, and right before the government cooties is what I call it, started up, I was lucky and sold it. And like I said, I bought this place and I bought another place in Arkansas. I actually have a place out in Texas still that I lived out there. I've had that house for probably 19 years.
Where's that at?
It's in right across the road from TCU College in Fort Worth.
Oh, wow.
Big brick. If you go by there, you'll see a big brick house with the, white columns, and it's usually got, I know it sounds ridiculous because I'm across the road from TCU. I went to college at Ole Miss University, so I've got Ole Miss flags flying out there right in front of, like I said, you can look and see the library at TCU from my balcony.
And you're renting that house out?
I've got a friend that stays there that still works on the border, and for him to keep stuff like that, it's just cheaper, and it keeps people from tearing up my house. Like I said, it's just cheaper that way. And for what I gave for the house, I would never get it in this market right now. And
yeah. Well, I don't know. Houses are going for a serious premium right now, dude.
I gave little over $250,000 for that house when I bought it. And the last time it appraised for almost $500,000.
Jeez, yeah, houses are, it's crazy. And
out there they are. You would laugh. Like I bought this house, which is a 3-bedroom house and 18 acres of land. I gave less than $22,000 for it.
For the whole thing?
Yes, sir.
Well, maybe I need to go out there and live amongst the Squatches. It's so much cheaper. It might even be a better deal.
Well, the house in town that I sold, it was a 5-bedroom house that was probably 100 yards from the local high school. I gave $40,000 for it, and I sold it for $92,000.
Jeez. So let me ask you this: these animals. Now, you mentioned earlier that these Squatches that are on your property, okay, and it's really just an issue of them being there, being squatters, and not paying rent, right? That's really what the problem is.
Yes, sir. And and they have a large roaming area. Like they show back up here. It rained here for almost a week. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had reports of these same looking Squatches probably 20 miles from me. So I don't know. I didn't think their roaming area was that big, but apparently it is.
Oh, yeah. What do you think? Now, let me ask you a question. This is the intriguing question. I mean, everybody's probably wanting to know. What do they look like?
They can look different. Well, there's no just one way they look.
Mm-hmm.
After we get off, I'll send you a picture
mm-hmm.
That I haven't shared around, but just to a few people. I caught that one back in November, the end of November, beginning of December. That one kind of looks more like in the face. It doesn't have face. Its face is not completely covered with hair. It kind of looks more like a giant Neanderthal covered with hair the rest of his body. Then you've got some that looks like what they call the patty. I've seen those. And then way up north in Alaska, those things look like an abomination. They look like think of a grizzly bear, the biggest grizzly bear you ever saw, and times that by 2. They can probably get, I'm estimating, anywhere from 900 to 1,500 pounds. That before I seen these out here, that was the biggest one I'd ever saw.
And folks,
and I don't think
I'm going to tell you something. Jay's not lying about that with those in Alaska, dude. This isn't something that he's just rattling off. No, I've heard these stories many, many times. And that is the truth. They get gigantic and they look evil. I'm not joking.
Yeah, they do. I don't think any of them want to have actually anything to do with us, but those up there definitely don't.
Yeah, and they're violent.
Yeah, very violent. There was an incident. I went up there, and the first one I ever got to see, we were up there doing what they call cold weather. We were actually right outside of Yellowknife doing cold weather, which is actually in Canada. And the border's not very far from there back to Alaska. And we had been doing cold weather exercises, survival school. And we had come back to the local closest town there to pick up some other supplies. And there was a guy that had came in. He came in on a side by side. I'm talking right in the middle of town, slides up onto the sidewalk and everything else, runs into the where the sheriff's department is right there, or the constable's office up there, and just going crazy. He said, I need y'all to come out there, bring every kind of firearm you got. He said, they have done tore one of my storage buildings. He said, and I think they're going to come back and get the other one. He said, and the guy's trying to get him to slow down and stop talking and just calm down. He said, those MFer and big hairy creatures out there have just destroyed my smokehouse. Well, I'm hearing that, and so I'm just kind of sitting back listening because this is my thing. And they finally decided to go out there, and I walked up, introduced myself, showed my credentials to the constable, and said, you mind if y'all want some more backup? I said, this sounds kind of like I've heard this before. He's like, well, yeah. He said, because we're shorthanded. He said, y'all come on. So we jump in our vehicle. He jumps in his, and the guy just leaves the side by side. And it's still half up on the sidewalk out there. And it's just close to downtown, which down out over there, it's not unusual. We get back up there. And what this guy had turned into a smokehouse was, those 20-foot long shipping containers?
Uh-huh.
He had took one of those and converted it to where it was a smokehouse. And he was smoking meat and stuff. Now, this guy was actually poaching animals. That's the other thing that made this crazy. Knowing that he was bringing the police back up there and he was committing crimes, but he was scared.
Where about in Alaska was this?
It is right outside of, it's probably about 60 miles outside of Anchorage. Like I said, it's a little bitty town that I cannot remember the name, the name of, and like it's a dot on the map. Most people get there through bush plane, which that's the way you get around up there 90% of the time. Anyway, it's just a little community. It's part of. Y'all ever heard the ice road system they got up there?
Mm-hmm.
During during this time of the year, which is fixing to end, the only way you can drive there is when all the little lakes and ponds freeze over and go through there. Other than that, you have to fly in. We get up there though, and this is a 20-foot shipping container, and it looks like somebody has been playing kickball with it. It is smashed up. It has been flipped over on its side. The doors have been ripped off, and you can smell that, there had been meat hanging in there. And this thing, literally, I've never seen. Only other time I've seen a shipping container done like this is after Katrina, when Katrina took and threw them up against walls and stuff and just flipped them. It looked like this thing had been in the worst wreck ever, and it didn't even have wheels on it because it was sitting flat on the ground. This thing had ripped doors off, flipped it over, bent it, put big giant dents in it. I don't think it was just one. I think it was more than one.
Oh,
but they wanted in that. They wanted in that thing because they could smell. And this guy hadn't been there. This was the first what they call summertime that he'd been up there, and he was supposed to have been gold panning. And like I said, he was actually poaching caribou and elk up there.
Yeah, and you've heard of Port Chatham, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, where those people they were ran out of there by murders. Those Sasquatch were murdering people. Do you know where Vallejo is? I think that's in. I'm trying to look. Let me look at a map here.
I think I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever been
it's
there.
In the southeast of Alaska. But I'm going to look it up real quick to make sure I'm saying that correctly. If I'm right about that, where it's at. But I had heard some stories out of that area. How long were you up in Alaska?
We were up there for almost 8 months because we went through a bushman school up there, survival school, and then we went through cold weather survival school, and then we went through cold weather shooting classes up there because I shoot long range. Done that most of my life. Shooting precision rifles and stuff, or just about any kind of rifle, is not like shooting it down here in the lower. It's like and our winters down here are nothing like they are up there.
No, I know.
I've had the bolt on my rifle freeze, where it was like it was welded in place. And they teach you how to get that loose, how to fix it where it won't do that. And then it's different in shooting long range up there. The easiest, your ammo, for people that don't know or people that do know that shoot long range, the temperature of your ammo makes a difference in your shot.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways that you can keep it consistent is it was cold enough to keep your ammo consistently to a consistent temperature. You have to put it under your armpit and hold it there for like 15, 20 minutes to get the ammo to keep warm. That way, when you shot, it wouldn't change the whole ballistics in the shot. Like I said, just stuff like that is what we were doing up there. There's a mountain up there that I don't want to say too much on your channel because there is a base up there. There's also supposedly the Black Pyramid that's up there that if you pull it up on Google Earth, there's a mountain, the biggest mountain up there. There's a blacked out area on Google Earth.
You mean it's blacked out?
Yeah, you can't see it. Just like if you go to look at the border between the U.S. and Mexico for about 5 miles on each side of the border, Google Earth has it blocked out. It's just smeared. It's purposely done. Same way with Area 51 and a couple other places. You ever heard of Mount Rainier?
Oh yeah, Mount Rainier in Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a place up through there. If you start looking on Google Earth, you'll see a place like that too. But like I said, just look for the largest mountain in Alaska. There's only one. And like I said, when you try to Google it, try to look on Google, you're not going to be able to zoom in and stuff like you normally would. It's going to be blacked out areas.
Yeah, the place is Valdez. That's where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
Valdez, and this was like, I think it was to the east, to the northeast. I think it's near Wrangell, St. Elias, National Park.
Yeah, I know what park you're talking about.
Yeah, it's up in that area. It's like there's Cordova, and then there's Valdez. And I thought that there was a little bitty place called Vallejo, but I can't remember the name. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. But I think it's Valdez. But it's like right there. The person that told me about it, they were from Valdez, but they were telling me that at least that's the area. It's like there's like a place like right just north of that, where the forest gets thick, again, and that area.
If I'm not mistaken, they have a dog run that goes through there, a national dog run.
I'm not real familiar. I just know
I'll find out. There's a lady that's on YouTube. She goes by I cannot remember her screen name, but she is the only lady. Her and another lady are the only two ladies to ever enter and win the Iditarod.
Yeah, Iditarod. Yeah, yeah. When you, and I was going to ask you this question. When you were up there, did you hear reports? Did you check? Did you ask anybody, or did you? Or
Yes,
was
sir.
Strictly just business.
I checked around, and like I said, at that man's place, I went back and we set up and staked that place out because the smell is what got me. The even though there was hardly any meat or anything in there, it was the smell. If any kind of wildlife that was around there, predator wise, is going to be drawn to that, and that was the odd part. We camped out there for 2 days. Not a bear, a cougar, nothing like that showed up. And then all of a sudden one night, my spotter starts bumping me and says, "Bolt, why is that freaking tree moving?" And I looked and I said, "Where?" He gives me a coordinate, and I get on my scope and I'm looking. And I said, "I don't see it." Then all of a sudden something blocked out my scope. Now, what I'm looking at, my scope's turned down on about 5 power, and it goes all the way up to 12. I've got it turned down to about 5 power, and it's not where I'm looking is probably not 100 yards, maybe a little less. This thing blocked. All of a sudden, it just like somebody put their hand in front of my scope. I'm like, what the heck? And so I turn the scope on down. And I back off, and I still can't. You can't see with your naked eye because I'm looking through a starlit scope, and it's kind of like looking through night vision, but it's not. It's looking through starlight is kind of looking at an old black and white TV, but a little bit clearer. You can make out shapes, weapons, different things like that, and it takes hardly any light. It doesn't emit a light source like infrared or night vision or anything like that. Like I said, what it does is it amplifies any light that is out there like 100,000 times. The starlights will be enough to light up the inside of the scope like you're looking at like you're looking at an old black and white TV, sitting there. Well, I can't see anything because it just blotted out. I'm like, what the heck's going on? I thought I was having a malfunction with my equipment. Now, he's got a spotting scope that is starlight, but it goes down to like 3 power and goes all the way up to like 50. And so he hands me his spotter. And as I'm looking through that, it's not a tree. It is a creature standing there because as it turns, you can almost catch, how deer's eyes will glow at night? The light from the stars and stuff was picking up a glow in this thing. I'm like, what in the heck am I looking at? So I got a reference point, handed him back his spotter, and I got back on my rifle. And I was able to finally get a better look. And dude, you talking about ugly? It has a face not even a mama could love. And the way we judged how wide it was, it got next to some trees. And we picked out reference points of, for the width and then the height. And we kind of stayed back in that hide. And we're 100 yards or so when we first seen it. And it actually walked back up to where that trailer was. It's bumping and knocking around inside that trailer. It had got probably 175 to 200 yards away from us. And we just hunkered down. I didn't want to make any noise. I didn't want to leave from there and nothing else for 2 reasons. I'm trying to figure out what this thing is, and if we make noise and stuff, draw attention to us, what if it gives chase? I had a 308 rifle. He had a 5.56. As big as this thing was, I didn't think a 308, it would take multiple rounds to take this thing down. So I didn't want to engage it in any kind of way, and I didn't want it to engage us. So I figured the best thing to do is hunker down, pretend you're not there. And like I said, we went back and measured, and at the time, that was the biggest Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it, That thing measured almost 13 and a half foot tall from the branch that we were able to judge height, and it was almost 5 feet wide.
Golly. And you saw this?
Oh, yes, sir. I saw this through a scope. Yes, sir.
And you know, the Port Chatham, if you look at a map from there to Valdez, is about 230 miles. And that's not that far. I mean, you know, it's not, but you know, I believe that these creatures live all over Alaska. I believe they're all over the place up there.
Oh, yeah, they are. Well, and this thing had almost a 7-foot stride.
It's unbelievable.
Now, you think of something that's just walking with a 7-foot stride. Now, you get it in motion where it's at a jog. Think of how much ground it can cover.
And this is in the South, too. I mean, like, I've heard stories of in the North area that they get even bigger and more menacing, you know. And I
always come up with the idea, the reason why they were so much bigger up there, and I think I'm wrong, because these ones either that or the ones that are hanging around here on my property and the neighboring properties, they've for some reason come down from up north down to here where it's easier pickings or whatever. And I don't know if they do that all the time. These things have been here for over a year, not just staying here, but they probably come through here twice a month. Or you know, and stay around, and it depends on if I get to aggravate them, they may stay longer. I've never been able to actually run them off, except for one time, and I wound up using flashbangs, and I probably fired 60 or 70 rounds just up in the treetops. I made all the noise I could to where I run everything off them around here. That's right after we first moved in, because they wouldn't stop throwing stuff at the house, and I was worried about them tearing into the house.
And these ones that you got on your property, do you think that these are flesh and blood completely?
Oh, yes, sir. They're flesh and blood because they can pick stuff up and throw it. You can, we got one out here, we named One Eye Willie because this thing looks like it got in a fight with Mike Tyson when it was a little baby and lost. Because it only has one eye. The other side of its face is kind of messed up. I don't know what happened to it or whatever. But it only has one eye, and you can tell because it's one eye shined, and that's the biggest one of the group.
And so, let's switch gears for a minute. Let me ask you a question. These Bigfoot, okay, these Sasquatch. Now, there are reports, and I did a show on a Whisper to a Scream with Ron Tremblay. We talked about the Genosqua, and I believe that's the episode where we talked about the Port Chatham or Port Lock, whatever you want to call it. And how they were killing people and running people off.
Yes,
these creatures you said they don't look like normal Bigfoot, but
no,
go ahead.
It's odd. Like most people think of Patty and stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, take that Patty thing. Like I said, make it about 13 foot tall, probably about 5 foot or maybe wider. And then it don't have hair all over its face. In the mouth, it doesn't have like a canine, like protruding, you know, muzzle or nothing. But it kind of, you know how a bear, I forgot the kind of bear it is. I think it's the Indian bear or whatever. It doesn't have really like a bear muzzle, but it's got almost like its jaw protrudes out. It's like that. And then the nose is big and bulbous, like a, I can't think of the ethnicity to think of. Most people like a kind of like German or whatever. You know how they get that big bulbous nose? Think of that, but it's probably the base of the nose is probably 4 inches wide. Now the nose doesn't turn up; it's just a bulbous like nose. In the animal world, think of there's a monkey that's in the Himalayas that likes to. It usually stays around hot springs and stuff like that. It's got this bulbous, like weird looking nose. Think of that, but way bigger. That's what these things look like. It's the most hideous looking montage, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, I've never seen none that looks like this. Now I've seen some that look like Patty that I don't mean to offend nobody, but it kind of looks like they had, you know how a person has Down syndrome? When you see them, you can tell. That's the way kind of these things, it is I relate it to. It looks like a normal Squatch with maybe some Down syndrome in it. And they act totally different. Like they can get teed off at them over a flip of a hat. These out here are more curious. They've not tried to attack. The other thing is there's a dog that came up here that where it came from, I have no idea. I can go put this dog. We saved the dog and has been nursing it back to health because it looked like it's about to starve to death. I can put it in a pen. And there's another dog out there that's in an electrified pen. They will go up under where I've got my foilers and stuff parked, go in there, open that door up, and let it out.
That's weird.
They have not tried to hurt the dog. Now, I've heard stories way back when, most of us in the Appalachians, where people would say, you know, they seen a Bigfoot and there was a dog out there just running around having itself a fun time, and it followed the thing off.
Mm-hmm. Well, the animal you're talking about, I think, is a macaque. I think that's what you're talking about.
That's it.
And I think they only found in Japan. I don't know of them.
It may be Japan. I thought it was the Himalayas.
Like they hang around in the hot springs, and I don't know that for sure. You can look that up, or you guys at home listening can look it up. I think it's a macaque. I'm not 100%.
Well, if the listeners want to, they can look it up. And like I said, think of that, but this thing looks like the end of its nose looks like it's almost half as big as my fist.
Oh, and so that's a weird looking creature, and it doesn't have hair on its face?
And it's got sparsely. Most of the hair, it looks like it droops down like a mop over its face. And it's got a deep setback brow ridge, and the eyes are about the size of golf balls.
And these things are, how tall are they?
They're about the biggest one we've been able to go back and base measurement off of is about 13.5 foot tall.
And so you've done a lot of research on not just Bigfoot, but on Dogman too.
Yes,
and
sir.
Like, do you have any Dogman on that property in that area?
I haven't seen any on this property, but I own another property that's probably 25 miles, and I call it Zwicky Woods. Now, that property is where me and my son caught the sound that's going to be played out here, the recording. That property is about 90 acres out there. And no one has been on that property, from what I understand from the game warden, because they didn't know I'd bought it. And I was parked out there. Me and my son had walked in and was walking back. And when I walked back up, there's a game warden parked behind me. And just so happens I knew him. He says, "Tucker, what are you doing?" I said, he said, "What are you doing over here?" I said, "I just bought the place." I said, and we were kind of looking it over. He said, "I didn't know you'd bought this." He said, so he said the man's name. He said, "So what happened to him?" I said, he died not too long ago, and his family didn't want to have nothing to do with it, and they're selling everything off. He said, "Oh." I said, "Why? Is there a problem or something?" He said, "Well, the man that had owned the property back, I think it was 10 years plus, had a written order for the Mississippi Parks and Wildlife and the local sheriff's department. If you were seen on his property, you were to be locked up and prosecuted for trespassing. No questions asked. It didn't make a difference if they were kin to him. He didn't want nobody on that property." And there was a couple of odd disappearances that within 5 miles of that, and an odd death that happened within 5 miles. Well, actually, it was within 2 miles. I'll have to send that to you so you can when I mean weird. There was a guy that killed his mother, ran out there into those woods, out there close to those woods, had a 30-30 rifle. When they found him, they thought he was in between a fork of a tree, and they thought at first that he was setting up trying to get a shot on one of those officers. So they backed off and kind of came in from the sides until they realized he's stuck in the fork of the tree, and the rifle is sticking through the middle of his chest.
And why was he up in the tree?
I have no idea, but he was found that way. I know the report says that he committed suicide. But the rifle, I talked to one of the officers that was there. We talked about this on a show that I did over in the Vault of Nightmares, and I don't remember. I think I'll have to get you that number, the number to the show. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but like I said, the officer I talked to said no. He fired that rifle until it was empty.
And this was because of a Dogman?
They don't know if it was Dogman or Bigfoot at first. It's labeled as now this guy, like I said, was under investigation for killing his mother with a claw hammer.
Mm.
They went out there to find this guy. Now, he was high on drugs and everything else, but they went out there well, this was the last place that he was supposedly at. It's labeled as a unknown death / homicide / suicide. Somehow this guy was able to fire all the rounds out of his weapon and then jam the rifle through his chest, out his back, and then put himself in the fork of a tree.
Oh my gosh! And so, do you think that it was?
I think it was Squatch.
You think it was a Squatch?
Yeah. But on this same property, there's a creek that runs through it. I've only explored a good bit of one side of the creek where I found just crazy Squatch activity. On the other side of the creek is where I found it looks like a canid track, a human canid track. It looks like what I know to be a Dogman track.
And you know what, folks? We're going to stop that. This is all the time we have for tonight. But join us next week, and we're going to pick up where we left off with Jay, and we're going to talk about Dogman and Bigfoot, and we're going to get into all these other things that Jay brings to the table. And that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you, folks, for listening to PRT. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and to go to Vault's channel, Vault of Nightmares, and like and subscribe for him too. Thank you.